All right, we're back for another episode of the Mortgage Broker Podcast. And today we're doing a Behind the Broker series with Kelly Mann, a top agent with a Better Way Mortgage Group. And honestly, one of the best episodes we've done. This one is jam-packed. It's a little bit longer, so feel free to break in halfway through. But honestly, I don't think you're going to want to turn this one off. There's such good nuggets here that I would definitely recommend getting a notepad and maybe pulling over to the side of the road if you're driving. Enjoy. We'll pass it on to the team. Welcome to the Mortgage Broker Podcast, tailor-made for Canadian mortgage industry professionals. Proudly presented by a Better Way Mortgage Group, this podcast is your trusted source for insider insights, market updates, and strategies to elevate your career in the ever-evolving world of mortgage brokering. Whether you're a seasoned broker with a Better Way Mortgage Group or an industry enthusiast looking to stay ahead, our episodes are designed to empower you with the knowledge and tools you need to excel in the Canadian mortgage space. We're here today with Kelly Mann, one of our top agents at a Better Way Mortgage Group and a 23-year veteran in the financial space. We're very excited to have you. You have a lot to share. Derek's also joined us today. So yeah, today we just want to really jump into that. Like you really have had such an incredible career. We want to touch on that. What led you into the space? And yeah, maybe you can just tell us a little bit about yourself. And again, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. So yes, I've been in the banking finance space actually for 26 years.
26 years,
And
sorry, but
20,
I shortened you.
23 of them I've been doing mortgages for.
Wow.
So I basically started lending when I was 19, and I had worked at the credit union for 3 years prior. And I was always kind of intrigued with lending and, having strong client relationships and just really building a career. So I basically just really just do what I do best is client relations and building relationships with people. And because at that time I was in branch for that period of time before I became mobile 2 years later, you consistently had the same people coming in and saying hello to you and asking about their kids and just getting to know them. So it was a great tool to kind of learn how to build relationships with those clients.
Before we move on to the next topic, I want to just touch on, you've obviously seen a lot of change. Like we've seen a lot of change in the last 2 years alone for someone that's maybe new in the mortgage industry, but maybe just touch on what you've seen compared to how maybe easy it was, 23 years ago compared to where we are today.
So what has really changed from my perspective is really like the relationship part really has stayed the same. But previously there were, say if you were doing lending in the branch, your branch manager had limits. And so if there was, a case where someone really deserved that lending facility, they were able to override that decision. Where right now,
no longer.
that's no longer. But that has really changed. Obviously, the introduction of technology has really, and what we're seeing in the AI space, but so much difference in technology, the rules, like we've gone from, only having a 25-year mortgage all the way up to having a 40-year mortgage, all the way down to have a zero down mortgage. And now we're back at the 25, 30, and that's also changing. So it's been a consistently changing space, which obviously has, impacted in some good ways and also some others, but definitely some change for sure.
That's a good point. I mean, there has been so much change. We constantly are dealing with change. That makes it a lot of reasons why it's very challenging to stay in this industry. You've been doing this for 23 years in the mortgage space specifically, like you mentioned. Like, what led you into the financial space, but more so the mortgage side?
Very good question. As I said, I started working at the credit union while I was in high school. And so I started doing it every day, giving up sports and being at the credit union every single day, Tuesday to Saturday. And then when I turned 19, I started lending. And it was such a cool thing to learn and grow. But I was that person that would be at the branch till 8 o'clock by myself when it closed at 5. And so when the mortgage sales force became available in the credit union space, I decided to go for it because at least this way I could work the hours I wanted to work. I could work on the weekends. I could build my clientele. And let's be honest, I was able to make a lot more money than I did in the branch. So that was primarily was being able to service my clients, the way that I wanted. And I was able to, build additional income and have a stronger career for myself. And, but yeah, definitely a lot of changes for that for sure. But I just decided to just take the leap and just do it.
That is a big leap. I mean, for a lot of roles in the mortgage, the mortgage space, it does become 100% commission. Like, where did that evolve to? Because I know you had a bit of a career from multiple credit unions, and then ultimately the big green bank where you remained for quite some time. What did that look like? When did you get to that point where it was commission based only, and how was that transition?
So generally, when you become a mortgage specialist at a bank or a credit union, the first maybe 3 months are, a salary guaranteed. So when I turned 19, I was all in. And when I first started, actually, I didn't participate in any real estate transactions. So I've worked at Vancity, is where I started in the mortgage specialist role. And then I moved over to TD. So when I was at Vancity, I actually didn't work with realtors. It was my own clientele. And I was that girl, if you wanted to build a house, you came and saw me because I worked with builders. So I had that same clientele that rotated, especially on the builder front, every 3 to 6 months. And then in the financial crisis, when it hit in the US in 2008, the credit unions actually weren't lending as much money. And so that was starting to impact me personally because my clients would come in and I wasn't able to help them. And so what I decided to do was I was picking between TD and Royal Bank, and I decided to go for TD. And at that point, they didn't have that kind of product. So I really had to restart, and that's kind of been the case in careers, is that you have to start like fresh and new sometimes. So I, with TD, was able to get into a really great in-house. And in-house is just a real estate office. That's what we relate it to. And so I was able to go in there and be a part of their team and their culture and build new relationships. So it was, each bank or credit union has their own niche. So Vancity is very well known for doing construction, and TD is very well known for being like a leader in doing real estate transactions. So I was extremely grateful for the experiences that I gained with both those institutions.
I mean, you bring up a good point. Every time you restart, even if it's from one FI to another, you are restarting. You're learning new products. Also, keep in mind a lot of your client base are probably tied to the previous institution, right? Which is a massive change. I mean, translating that into your most recent change into the mortgage broker side of our industry, maybe touching on that briefly. What were some of the challenges and successes that you had, and what makes you want to continue as a mortgage broker?
So luckily, when I worked at TD, TD is a big player in the broker space. So that was kind of one of the attractions. And the reason really why I decided to move to the broker space was to kind of build a team and also incorporate a little bit more work-life balance, because the ability to have a team and to be able to grow it. But one of the key things was, when I work with clients, I don't just say, hey, I'm your mortgage broker or your mortgage specialist. It was like, hey, I'm your finance girl in your family. Whatever you need, call me. And so you would get requests for like, hey, my daughter wants to buy a car loan, or my kids want to open up a TFSA, or we want a small business loan or a commercial loan. And so what that has been my number one success to me is being able to be a hub for my clients. And at some point, I said, like, I asked myself, why am I referring all of these to agriculture? Being in the valley is tons of it. Small business, I could actually do this myself. And then I can be the go-to for everything and just, refer to different arms. So that was probably for me the biggest reason why I did it. And it's not easy to make that. It's not the same as what you may have had elsewhere, but it's a new challenge, and I really welcome that challenge.
That's a great point. So, I mean, the two key pieces I hear is like the team side of things, which you've done a really great job, and I'm excited to dive into that. But the choice of being able to handle all of these different options on your own and actually make some pretty good money from it, especially when you talk about agricultural type deals. I know how involved you've gotten into that space, and some of the size of these deals are quite. I mean, it's amazing, really, what you can do in that side, but also what we found with a lot of brokers is they find that they just niche, even from transitioning from bank to broker, they find that still wanting to niche in like a very specific residential AAA space, where you've taken the approach of like you're going wide, and that's clearly because of how you manage your day and position yourself at the bank of being that catch-all. How have you found that challenge of like not just learning all of these different bank like policies and when it comes to just your residential products, but also being able to manage all of the learning and ability to fund all these other deals like the agricultural, the commercial types, deals that you're seeing now?
So I think for being a broker, like I want to give you the analogy of jumping in a puddle. So when you jump in that puddle, you're all in. And there's like you're just going to find your way. But when you first come in, the biggest thing that I would say is you have to leave your old world behind. Whatever you did before is not necessarily going to work now. And the thing that you will find in time, which will come in time, it didn't happen to me right away, is you're going to find your key player. So if you think about a hockey team, there's usually 5 of you and a goalie, right? So you take your goalie as your management, which would be you guys. But you usually have key players that are helping you succeed. And so you might not know what avenue you want to go for, and that's okay. But there's so many things. There's from, all sorts, like there's private lending, there's B lending, there's commercial lending, there's small business, there's all those things. And I think in time you kind of gravitate to one or the other. Like myself personally, I don't do a lot of B lending. I have a lot of AAA professional clientele, which also then relates me to being able to do commercial and small business lending, which also is able to even do some things on the investment side with mix. And so I think that comes in time as you grow, your portfolio grows, and you just really have to be open because when I first came on board, I was almost, putting my head against the wall, like, what did I do? Like, this is so different. But now looking back, I wouldn't have chosen a different career because I'm basically the anchor that's running the engine and I can do so many different things. So I think in time, you kind of find out what you like. And like recently, we had a jet loan. I never thought, like, I love aviation, but I never thought that's possible, but it's possible. So many different things. So think big, but move slow, like pick slowly, you'll find your way and then go all in.
Well said. I mean, it just kind of it's a good reminder of just like the power of partnership and like which is essentially you're leveraging the network and that's one of the biggest strengths I've noticed from yourself is just your network is so big and you seem to like if you don't know how to do something you're very willing to go out and figure out who can help you with that. And so just look thinking about that team around you, like you put yourself with leaders in each of those different areas. Kind of moving on from that, like if you look at like the biggest impact in your business, I think I know the answer to this, but like what would you say would be the biggest impact of your business outside of just that partnership role with the network?
I mean, there's a lot of things I could say, but I would say is working with some of the best people. Uh, People make the world of a difference. Like if you don't know the answer, someone else knows the answer. And really aligning yourself with good people because the better people you work with, the better quality referrals you have, that actually makes a huge difference in our world. But I would say is working with good people. And honestly, no matter what you do, giving top tier service will always be number one. It's communicating well, giving good service, do what you say you're going to do. If you can't do something, don't promise that to people.
I mean, it's funny. I know how relationship based you are and how important relationships are to you and everything you just said, whether it's on the lender side or like a referral partner side or the client side, like it's all tying into that underlying importance of relationship, right? Which is key. And back to your point about lenders, yeah, there are 100 lenders in our channel. You're going to gravitate to 6 for most of your business, and you're probably only going to stick with them if the relationships are strong, if the people are strong, even if they have the best products. If they're not good people and it's not good service, you're probably not going to continue there, right?
And they are such a key part of our business. Like the ability, there's so many BDMs out there that, you know what, if you need something and it's actually unbelievable that you can actually pick up the phone and you could send them a text at 8 o'clock. And if you have that relationship, guess what? They're going to help you. And so we're so grateful to have those relationships. And obviously we've invested in them, but it is a really key piece of our success.
Man, it's a really good reminder because, people think of, like, especially professionals, whether it's real estate agents, lawyers, brokers, what you name it, like they always think it's treating their clients with the best experience, but it's so much more than that. It's treating just everyone around you in your business with respect. And I think a lot of folks lose sight of that, especially in the broker channel. And like, there should be no tolerate, like you should not tolerate any of that type of poor behavior when it comes to our lender partners. Like, they mean so much to us, and like, to your point, like, they're picking up your call at 8 p.m. Like, I can guarantee you they're not doing that for everyone, right? And
No,
that's just a
no.
huge piece.
I would say that is something that if you're a brand new broker and you're in this space and you're just starting out, is that, that business might not come right away, but you actually do want to get to know these people. And honestly, even recognition for some of your underwriters, like they all have managers. If they're doing a good job for you and they're making your files be very, you know, like clean and approvals and just accurate, that saves you so much time. But just take the 2 seconds and, like, how we want Google reviews, give them a good review to their manager. It really makes a huge difference. And during that time when business isn't just knocking on your door, like, you have this lineup yet, you will, but take the time and invest the time in your people.
Couldn't agree more. Okay, why don't we transition into just like the day-to-day operations? Like, what does a typical day look like for you?
So a typical day for me, um, I'll actually spell it out. So I'm an early riser. I get up between quarter to 5 to 5:30. I usually love mornings. I love to know like what's going on, and I usually know that the night before. And we have a very clear picture of a day. But myself, I don't overbook myself. I'm very client facing, and I'm not myself. I don't deal with as much as underwriting as I used to in my career, but I do know what's going on with deals. So I have a very, and I don't jam everything in one day. So I myself personally, if I'm meeting clients, I kind of actually prefer to do them on certain days because you're going to the office. I'm still old school, maybe. I like to meet people face to face. I want them to come in. We have a great office. Is I will set that up on certain days. So those are the days. And then other days is like teamwork and doing, files and helping push, certain things through. I do a lot of real estate training. So I really try to be disciplined to my schedule, but I also block out time for like emergency fires, something where you need to really be there. So my Monday to Thursday, personally myself, I don't those are my dedicated work days. Like I don't do anything in the evenings per se. Friday I try to take it a little shorter, and the weekends in spring and summer I do work and I do meet clients because when they're free, I want to be free. But I would say for me is being very disciplined and time blocking, and it's a non-negotiable. Like if you are dedicated to make calls, you're making calls. And I know in the past, like I used to not stop my day unless I did 35 calls a day. And that's how I built my clientele. So um, it was just, you know, managing that book. But for me, I've always been very highly real estate driven. And so I'll do a lot of purchases, and those all have crazy deadlines, and everyone needs to be aware of the deadlines and all in. But to time block, but also give yourself the grace that there's going to be those urgent fires and you're going to have to be available.
The fires will come.
The fires do
I mean,
come.
you hit the nail on the head. Organization, time blocking. Like if you're not doing those, and I just have to throw this in here that you're a busy broker,
Mhm.
right? Like you're busy. So if you weren't doing those two things, if you weren't planning the night before, if you weren't time blocking or scheduling your meetings on a certain day, your life would probably be chaos, right?
Yes.
And it can still be chaos even with time blocking when you're really busy,
Mhm.
the fires that come up ad hoc. But um, in and amongst all that, and like I know that you're a very social person too, right? Like you're always doing events and whatnot. Again, client in-person meetings, like those can take an hour and a half, or a call might take 15 minutes. So that's an important piece of the relationship side. In and amongst all that, not to paint that it's not a perfect world, what challenges do you run into in a typical day or typical week that are hard to plan for, I guess you could say?
So I would say, I mean, there's a variety, and I definitely could say that it's never really been a smooth sailing. I've kind of, could say that I've operated well in chaos a lot of the times. But it's basically, I would say, like, if my mind is right and I take care of that first, I'm aware that the bullets are going to come, the fires are going to come. And so you have to be ready for them to hit you, but just not get at you. There's going to be things where, you know, you think you have an approval and it doesn't actually work that way, or something else comes up, or you're losing something to the rate, which we've seen a lot this year. Is for me is like that stuff is out of my control. I can only worry about what's in my control.
So as
And
long as you're
that's
always doing the best
and
you
if I
possibly
know that
can, you
I've
can't let it
given
impact you.
someone the best that I can, and I know that I've offered them like everything and they feel really well taken care of, that's about all I can do. And so there are going to be days where, I'm sure like all of us, we want to quit. We don't want to do this anymore. But the next day comes and that day passes and you're ready to go again. So I think it's just mentally telling yourself that it's never going to be perfect. There's going to be ebbs and flows in our business. There's going to be months where you do some incredible volume, and there's going to be months where, you're doing all the things, but it just doesn't come. So I think it's more of having a very disciplined mindset and realizing that nothing in life comes easy, and it's something you're just going to navigate, and whatever you have to do, you're going to do.
I'm motivated.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, it's just like a key takeaway there, though, is just control what you can control. Like I mean, it's so simple, but it's so hard too sometimes, right? So I appreciate that. So I want to move into your client relationships because this is a big piece. I know you have great real estate partners and a lot of your business comes, and that's why you're in purchases like you mentioned. But I know you get a lot of referrals from your clients and you get a lot of repeat clients. Like, what is your approach to building and maintaining such strong client relationships?
So, over the time of being a mortgage specialist in the bank and being, the forefront at big brands like a Remax or Royal LePage, which I'm still involved in both, is nothing happens unless that client is happy. So the little things. I'm sure we've all done other purchases in life. I know, Dean, you and I, we have our passion for shoes, but we have these reps that actually we go buy something and I get a handwritten card like, thank you so much for coming, and like, I hope you enjoy your shoes. I think about that, and how many times do we do that to a client? How many times are we saying, hey, thank you for coming in. Thanks for referring your kids. Thanks for referring your neighbor. So, what are the little things that we do to make that experience be better? And that's kind of what I've always thought of. And I kind of, there's also the empathetic side of being a mortgage broker. Sometimes you come across situations where it's been less fortunate for someone. Maybe they lost their spouse, or they had something that really just ruined their financial picture. And I always say that people will always remember how you make them feel versus what you did. So, for example, this weekend, we had a client who was buying a home, and they have had some unfortunate health situations. So, I knew that with them buying this home, that their life was already chaotic and busy, right? They're doing this. This is an emotional thing. They're doing it. So I reached out on Friday saying, hey, like literally the night before, and I said, hey, do you guys have lunch arranged for tomorrow? And they're like, no, we're actually wondering like what to do. I said, don't worry, I got you. I said, what time do you want delivery? And they're like 12:30. I'm like, okay, there's gonna be Panago like ordered. It's simple for me to do. I don't have to physically go, even though I'd love to. I don't physically have to go, but it's that one extra thing that they don't have to think about on that day. So things like that, subject removal, like celebrating with them and kind of building that. And last year in particular, I actually did 18 real estate transactions myself, meaning, and I'll explain what that means, is we're kind of a matchmaker, just like a realtor is, we are too. So when someone comes in and says, "Hey Dean, I want to sell my house," because you're in your market, you know the area, you're dealing with clients coming and going all the time. you actually are privy to some information of when is a new listing coming in. And so one of the key features with me is that I actually think about that. So I've had times where I've met clients and they're like, we have a renewal coming up, but our kids live with us now and they got married and this house isn't really well suited. I'm like, then why are you renewing? Why don't you look for what you really want? They're like, really? I don't know if we'd be able to afford it. Like the rates are higher now. So taking that time to actually figuring out their why. Why are they doing something? And then you never know who walks in your door the next day and is maybe looking for a house like theirs. And so that is something that to me has been such a successful piece of business, of being able to do that. And if they don't have a realtor in our network, we know so many good ones. And so we're able to kind of build those relationships. And the best thing for us is getting referrals, and the best thing we can do is give referrals. And so that is something that I take deep pride in. It's probably one of the best things about what I do daily. And that comes from spending time with people and getting to know them and getting to know, maybe their kids are going to university and they're not going to need that space anymore. So really like digging deep on their why. Because if you don't, there's always going to be somebody who has a better rate than you.
I think that's so key. And I mean, at the end of the day, like I've always said, clients don't always know what they want.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because of their lack of education on the market, on products, on properties, on qualification, right? So like I think that's huge. And another thing that you said that just resonates, you could do an absolutely perfect mortgage transaction for someone. It could be completely smooth. You could get them the best rate in Canada, but if you didn't make them feel good about it, they're not going to remember it,
That's right.
And they're not going to appreciate it. So yeah, those are huge points. Thanks for sharing that. You've kind of touched on this already, but how do you do your best to ensure a smooth experience for a client throughout the
So
transactional side
that's
of
a
it?
really good question. It's a really tough question because everybody is different, but really, the mortgage process is relatively the same. So I'm big on habit. The way you do one thing is usually how you do everything. And so when clients come in is I what we usually do is like a step by step kind of the same thing. And we actually go as far as if they don't have home insurance. Oh, you don't have someone? Okay, here's a few recommendations. Oh, you don't have a notary lawyer? Here's a few recommendations. When you come see me, I'm going to take a lot of the legwork off of you. And in turn, that also helps us too because we know that you have actually done it. So if you have not got house insurance and you're buying a home at subject removal and you're leaving it to the second last day before your purchase, that actually is something that I don't want. I want to know that it's all done. So we have developed over time templates of everyone's situation is a little bit different, but kind of the same sort of thing again and again. And then we are able to kind of identify like if you're a first time buyer and you've never bought a home before, our lingo might be a little bit more tailored to you. Where if you're looking for a reverse mortgage and you're downsizing, you're 80 years old, that language is going to be a little bit different for that client. So you kind of learn over time, and I would strongly suggest this. I still do this till this day, is track where your clients are coming from, who's referring them to you, and actually noting like, are they coming in person? Are they not? Because if you want to grow a team as well, and you're investing in an office and all that, those different things that cost you money, you want to make sure that that's actually going to be well suited for you. So I would say to sum that question up is to do the same things. It comes out of habit. So whether they're seeing you or they're seeing, Bob Smith on your team and you're away and luckily you're away on a holiday, they're going to get that same experience. So it's delivery and it's not going to come perfectly right from the get-go, but develop what works with you and keep doing the same thing again and again.
I love like hearing the preparation piece, like making sure the home insurance is in place is just prudent practice from a preparation. And like if that's not, that's something that can blow up potentially, right? So the preparation is so key. But I like the way you mentioned like you're your language is different towards a first-time buyer, because like a first-time buyer is probably going to want a lot more explanation on many different items because they just don't know, or they simply just don't know what to ask. And like, back to just maybe assuming that they have home insurance. Well, how would they know that? Like they've
Yeah,
never
because
done it
you got to
before, right?
remember that we do this every single
Yeah.
day, every single day. But when we go see a doctor, what do we know about medical?
Right.
So we're the experts in what we do. They're the experts in theirs. So when someone comes in, they don't know those things. They don't know that they need to know. They don't even know the costs involved. And so when we sit down and meet someone, it's not just your mortgage that you're paying for. It's your mortgage, it's your property taxes. Oh, water bill, you have to pay for water, all those things. So it's, and now with today's technology, you got clients getting information off TikTok. You have different avenues of where they're getting their information. So on my team, I know there's some clients that would be more well suited with someone else than me, because I am not your TikTok person. I am not your big on social media person, but they may relate someone more. So we try and also make them with who would give them the best personal experience. And that could be from a client coming in and having a WhatsApp chat group, or having an iMessage chat group, or they only want email, or they only want a phone call. So you have to know what people want and just ask the question. Just ask them, hey, what's your best communication?
I want to move into personal development,
Mhm.
professional development, whatever you want to call it. How do you, there's a lot here we can go into,
Yeah.
but I'll start off with, how do you maintain a healthy work-life balance? Because you strike me as somebody that is going to work your butt off and keep working. And how do you bring that back?
So admittedly, it's something that I've actually lacked. I lacked long. I I would say converting my life to being a broker, as much as, it has its challenges, especially when you're starting something new, it gave me the ability to have work-life balance. So previously, as much as I loved where I worked and I loved the people, it was amazing. I I lack that. I actually, if I went to go visit someone, I laugh when I say this, but I actually used to carry my laptop like a ghetto blaster. It was always with me because I was always on. I worked insane amount of hours, 7 days a week, and the reason I wanted to make a move was I personally couldn't do that anymore. I like to deliver high results and give great service, but I needed that help. And so when I first converted to the broker space, I had two people working with me at the time. And so I was able to alleviate, because there's one thing you got to remember. You're not a bank employee anymore. You are running a business. There's a lot more involved than just doing deals. And so you were able to kind of in time let go of the control on that and delegate and just trust that, hey, you're developing people now that you can help do that. And so I actually have been able to travel more and kind of have boundaries in place so that I'm not working like that as much. But obviously, you have to be producing results, and that all costs money. But I feel like the value it's added to my life is something that is so priceless to me.
One thing you said, how you're training people, right? And I'm curious to hear, when you were at the bank, did you get a different mentality from your clients because you were part of the bank? Did they have higher expectations of you being available? Because I've actually found over the years too that, you're always kind of shy and nervous to take time off. You don't even want your clients to know that you're away. But when you finally get to the point in your business where you're comfortable telling them, people are so appreciative and understanding. They almost want you to go away, and they want you to have a week off to yourself. Did you find a difference between the bank and broker channel?
In some ways, yes. I mean, still to this day, I have clients who are like, "Oh, you still work so much. Like, we hope you take some time off." Like, "Oh, good. You know what? We follow you on Instagram and saw you just went to Nashville and had so much fun." So yes, that does make a difference. Now, I came from TD, which I don't know. I believe they still are, but they were anytime, anywhere. That was their slogan for a long time. So anybody could walk into that branch and say, I'm looking for Kelly Mann on Sunday at 11 o'clock, and they're going to call you. So in this space, this is designed by you and what you do. I feel like there isn't that piece, and that's actually such a good point you bring up. But you know, you got to remember that they're big brands, and you don't have your own marketing. This is their marketing, and their marketing was great, but it meant that it was anytime, anywhere. Anybody could walk in and say, "Hey, I'm looking for this," and then you get the call, you get the email, that kind of thing. So, I would say it's a really good place, however, to start, to definitely learn, you know, the ropes, and you learn a lot about even yourself, of what you're capable of. Um, and the broker space has always intrigued me because some of the best brokers have come from the bank, but there's also a lot of brokers who didn't have any banking experience who are absolutely killing it because they're so systematic, like you two. So I would say yes, you know, I feel like because I have help, I don't necessarily have the pressures I had before because it was a lot of time it was just me. Um, but it's also because you design the career you want to have. You design your own marketing. You design your own hours. So yes, you know, there's pros and cons to both, but ultimately, you whether you're at bank or broker, it's up to you what you want to do.
I was going to jump into something, but like you cover so much. You see, you're really great to talk to. Like honestly, you're saying such good stuff that if you're listening, like I would be taking a boatload of notes right now. One thing that just jumps out at me, especially when it comes to being a professional, you talk about this work-life balance that you've essentially been able to develop as a broker because of the freedom, right? Like the freedom that you've experienced is allowing you to build this day and business how you want, and you're not building it for the other brand, right? And what comes with freedom, what I've noticed, especially from people making the transition from bank to broker, is they exploit that freedom to a point where they don't continue to put in the same amount of hours and focus that they did at the bank, because the bank kept them so diligent and almost militant to the point of like, you have to do these things. And then they don't have that accountability. Like what keeps you motivated and growing as a professional to stay so diligent?
I'm naturally a very driven, motivated person, and it's not driven for any other reason than that's just who I am. The best compliment to me is when you go out in the community. I've done a lot of community work and involved in different programs, and like there's literally probably no one who's done as many training events and community things as I have. Especially when I became a broker, I went all in. I was in that puddle deep and I went for it. Um, but I think the best compliment is it's getting referrals. It's having a good reputation. It's, you know what, not even having to spend money on marketing because people know you and they trust you, and your trust is what's building it. And I probably take it to a different level though, where I feel like we are a walking brand of ourselves. And so that means like you got your skates and you've tied your laces and you're out, you represent you. And so if I'm in the community doing something, I'm very diligent about what I'm doing and I show up for things. And but as for motivation, I happen to be that person that is I look at trying to be my most positive self. And I feel like in life, we have so much time in life, and there's things that we want to do. There's things that we want to establish, whether it's you have a family, you have kids, you know, you have this dream of having this big, huge empire, or owning a brokerage like you. There's so many different things, but I feel like the motivation has to become for within. And if it's something that you love to do, I think you naturally are motivated to do it.
That's a great point. Like if you got to love doing what you're doing for sure. I couldn't agree more. Okay, as we wrap up, this is one of my favorite questions that I love to get into, and it's: are there any books, podcasts, or any resources that you would recommend if there was just one? Like, is there one that sticks out to you that you'd
So
recommend?
I would say that's actually a really good question and also a very hard question because I have found that there's certain things that speak out to you more than others at different times. Um, so as for motivation, I mean, if you're struggling with motivation, I think the first thing you should probably do is actually look at your daily activities and see, you know, is this something that is actually a really good fit for you? Like, do you really like it? Or are you doing it because you've heard mortgage brokers make a lot of money and maybe you'll get the G-Wagon you always wanted or whatever? That's only going to last so long. So I think if it's lacking motivation or finding your purpose, um, that's one thing. But for me, is this is now running a business also on top of mortgages, on top of clients, and picking your niche and where do you go and where do you get these deals from? But to me, it's also like specifically as coming into the broker space. I mean, that's actually how I ended up at Better Way. Was I knew Derek, and Derek was always so helpful to me as a friend. Like, hey, if you ever need something, like, give me a call. And so that is where that kind of built out. Podcasts I follow, there's and I'd be happy to share. We can link them on here, but Tim Abraham, which was also recommended by yourselves, of even though it's American, it's very linked into kind of what we do in terms of giving that top tier service or database management. I mean, if you worked at a bank, you don't necessarily have a database system, right? So which is the right fit for you? There's specific people, like obviously you two, but I'd also give full credit to someone like Dustin Woodhouse, who has developed the books he has and the podcasts he has and the training programs that he has, and honestly, just being able to pick up the phone and run an idea by him. There are so many great brokers that are actually high performers that will help you and will give you true advice. So our own broker community is very invaluable. They give you so much service, but I think it's like there's been times where you're really lacking like systems and feeling like you're working in chaos. And what do you do? There's probably something that you can talk to, or talk to an expert who's already done it and learn from them. There are great podcasts and different varieties. So I would say for me personally, it's a mix of everything. And that's what I would say has contributed.
Good answer. And
Yeah.
that's totally great. Like I there is a lot. And you mentioned like we are so fortunate to be in this industry and have such supportive people that are willing to constantly support you, even when they like in a lot of cases, like people will help you even when they don't have the time to do it. And Dustin Woodhouse is one of those people, especially that, he will take your call at 9 p.m. to, to answer your question and help you out. Right.
Yeah,
Like,
there's Dustin, there's Eddie. I mean,
yeah,
there's all of you. There's your peers in your group. There is help, but the biggest thing is when you need help is to ask for it. And then, they're going to hold you accountable, though. If you're going to ask them for help, you better deliver, because that's
100%.
what they're going to hold you accountable for.
Yeah.
So, and then also like your own podcast that you do and all the training sessions. I've never seen a brokerage offer such great training. So if you're feeling stuck and you're not chiming into those calls that happen weekly, a couple times a week, if you can't watch it then, you can watch it on record. But you always also have to be learning something new.
Agreed. So this is one of our favorite segments of the show. It's a tools, tips, and tactics. Is there any tools or software that are essential to your daily work? And is there or maybe a tip or strategy that's been a game changer for your business?
So I think technology is such a huge piece, and like there is a variety of, like, I myself use Velocity for all deal submissions. I don't really step out of that. That is what I use. That's what the team uses. I actually really like it. The dashboard, as soon as you sign in, like if there's someone's birthday, you don't have to think about it. You see it and you are able to just reach out. And I'm very disciplined on managing our dashboard. So if there's deals that are sitting approved, but they have not moved to the next stage, why haven't they moved? So you always want to run that properly. Database programs, there's a million of them. So finding which one actually works for you. And that's kind of trial and error too, of what works. But I think it's whether you're working on your own or you're working with a team, is your own systems and being consistent on delivery.
And just go hard at whatever it is that you're working with, right? Like like you said, there's 60 different platforms you could work on and database programs. Just whatever you have, use it, get it functioning well. You don't have to overcomplicate these things. So kind of moving on from that, thank you for that. That was great. And I just want to also mention you sitting here doing a podcast with us, like talking about our industry being so supportive. Tons of brokers are going to listen to this and take a ton of notes from it. Like you don't have to be here doing this right now. So just a testament to that. Looking ahead into next year, we're nearing the end of the year now. Looking into 2025, do you have any goals set yet? And what
Yes,
are they?
so I actually am very goal oriented. So obviously you have, 2024 and part of 2023, personally myself weren't my biggest, highest producing years of my career. But after being in this career for as long as I have, I know that the bus does come, the people do get off the bus, and it's go time. So I look at right now, I'm not looking at now. I'm looking at May, June, April. And what are we going to do to crush those months? Because those are crucial, crucial months. And if you're not organized, you're going to miss the opportunity. So I'm definitely looking ahead. I actually personally feel that there's a lot of things that have been on pause that are going to get better, like construction. Construction is going to start happening. The amount of people who are looking for building their dream home, maybe they're selling 2 homes with their family, they want to move together. Even little things like, hey, I want to buy a new car, but I don't want to finance at the dealership. I just want to be able to roll it in and deal with my renewal and my refi, is being ahead of the curve. And only way you can do it is to actually do it. And I think if you don't have written goals, that's your first problem.
Great point. We just did a podcast on business planning. If you haven't listened to that, definitely listen to that one. But yeah, I mean, you're so correct. Like writing it down is so important. And then, that gives you the ability to
And
track it and come
also,
back to it.
sorry to interrupt you, but when I was at the bank, I had this one colleague, which we were still very, very close. And I used to phone him every single morning at like 7:50 and be like, so how many deals are you going to do today? And he probably was really annoyed at me because I'm that person. But I don't work there anymore. And guess who he phones? Me. So this is how many deals I did today. So if you can find like an accountability partner, whether it's inside your work, outside your work, maybe sometimes you just need that person who you trust that has a vested interest in you growing because you have that relationship. I think that will really help, you know, when you know someone's counting on you, like Derek, your 2 little girls, you know that they're counting on you. They want dad to be done work at a certain time so that you can play with them and hang out with them. You're not going to veer off for something else because that's your time. That's how I look at work and that's how I look at goals. And there's things that we all want to accomplish in life. And it's just to actually stop talking and just do it.
Totally agree. Before we close, I have to ask you one question. If you could go back to Kelly starting at Van
Yeah.
City, first becoming a mortgage professional, what advice would you give yourself?
Oh, that's a really interesting question. I think it's just honestly like believing in yourself. This is if I go back to the 19-year-old kid that I was, and back then we used to have to fax our deals in. I used to wake up, I lived at home. I used to wake up my whole entire house for doing that. But I would think that, and sometimes you don't know how long your career is going to be. If you want to do it, maybe you go to school, maybe you're working in family business, whatever, is actually having systems in place. If I had a database system set up back then, I probably would be retired by now, for sure. So I would say is constant belief, realizing that nothing is perfect. You're gonna have good days, bad days. So support yourself with the best people. Like honestly, if you need help in your work and you want to kickstart or you want to run a real estate idea, phone me. I'll help you. I love what I do. So I love to help people grow. And I think it's just having that and just being all in, being invested.
Well said. I mean, that's great advice for anyone. And yeah, I couldn't agree more. Like it's just the belief in yourself. It's so huge because I think for a lot of people, especially getting started, like that's one of the hardest pieces, right? Is to really believe you can do this. So thank you so much for joining us. Honestly, you've been excellent. Like there's been so much here. In closing, like how can our listeners connect with you? Because I know people are going to reach out, and I know you're willing to take those calls and help people.
So
like,
I'm not really big on like Instagram or social media or anything, but you could give me an email at kelly@frmmtg.ca. I use LinkedIn a lot, so reach out to me there. Honestly, if you want a day to just come and shadow, come to the office, and learn, happy to do that. Or you want, there's sometimes opportunities where I need help with, running an open house for a realtor. And if you're available, you want to do it, and I see that you want to do it, I'll get you in it. So probably just email or to give me a call.
This has been an amazing podcast. Like, I truly appreciate you doing this. We're so grateful to have you here at A Better Way. Really, really are. And your friendship. And yeah, thank you for your time today. It's really been great.
Thank you for tuning in. If you found value in this show, please subscribe to our channel on your preferred platform. We're available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. Your support is incredibly appreciated. We also welcome your reviews and feedback, which are crucial in helping us deliver outstanding educational content. Feel free to share your thoughts. A 5-star review would be fantastic if you think we earned it. Lastly, a vital announcement about Backpack Buddies, our chosen charity for 2024. This remarkable organization addresses a hidden hunger issue many are unaware of. In British Columbia, while school districts provide meals during school hours, numerous children face food scarcity at home, particularly during weekends. Backpack Buddy steps in to support these vulnerable children, ensuring they have easy to prepare, familiar food for weekends. This is achieved through collaborations with schools and an extensive distribution network. Your contribution can make a significant difference. With just $20, you can give a child in need a food bag from Backpack Buddies filled with enough meals and snacks to sustain them over the weekend and more. Once again, thank you for listening, and see you on the next one.